Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and we got Lady Gaga, JENNIE, and a whole bunch of crap this week, and this, it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So this is the sort of week that doesn't really surprise me, and that fact in and of itself is kind of revealing. I knew in my guts that Lady Gaga was going to get an album bomb, but not a big one, and the charts would be a little left in the lurch alongside some success from JENNIE and other tracks filling in the gaps from other album bomb songs falling away. In other words, it feels more like shuffling around certain tracks than making any significant change to our biggest hits. Not exactly a bad thing when a lot of the hits are pretty good, but as I said last week, the Hot 100 feeling this stale this far into the year, not exactly promising. And if you want an example of that, look no further than our top 10, where at number 1, Luther by Kendrick Lamar and SZA is still holding steady. Again, it's not surprising when the streaming is so robust, but the sales are softening and it looks like radio momentum is starting to run dry. Even if I think the song's great, that's kind of telling. Really, it just won out on the margins against our number 2, Die With A Smile by Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars, where it's on the top on the radio, but it's clearly peaked. And while it made up ground on streaming thanks to the album bomb, the margin wasn't filling in the gaps, especially with no credible sales. But hell, it's no surprise it held over Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar at number 3, where enough sales and some unexpected radio stability held ground as the streaming is starting to fade. Which takes us to an interesting pickup for A Bar Song Tipsy by Shaboozey at number 4. It's still losing a lot of radio, but it still has sales and a decent streaming week, and that added inertia kept it above TV Off by Kendrick Lamar featuring Lefty Gunplay at number 5, where it may have peaked a little lower on the radio and then saw the streaming slip. Then we had Apartment by Rose and Bruno Mars seeming to hold at number 6, although given how it's losing stream across the board, it might just be nothing has the strength to overtake it just yet, more of a margins game. Although Pink Pony Club by Chappell Roan is making that run up to number 7 as good sales and strong radio is picking up for streaming taking back a step. Although if I'm going to be candid, and I really don't want to be, Nokia by Drake going up to number 8 might have more actual traction. The streaming's only getting stronger, and it appears like someone finally pushed this to the radio. Although I'm not seeing that much larger momentum there. It's going to be the true test if the industry is interested in seeing Drake come back if the song actually picks up on the radio. Either way, it overtook Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish down at number 9, which spent the week wavering on the radio and losing streaming, and pushed back Lose Control by Teddy Swims to number 10, where it is getting dumped just way slower than you might expect. And that will naturally take us to our losers and our dropouts, in which there really weren't that many that are worth mentioning, oddly enough. It's got the feel of one album bomb replacing others, where the biggest songs leaving are both tied to Bad Bunny here, with Que Pasaria, with Rauw Alejandro, and EO taking their exit well short of making any year-end list for 2025. And while we then look at our losers, we also had Voy a Levarte pa Puerto Rico fall down to 96. The larger story with our losers are just songs that just can't get any momentum going at all. For our continued losses, we saw Gimme a Hug by Drake just collapse down to 53, and Call Me When You Break Up by Selena Gomez, Benny Blanco, and Gracie Abrams stumbled down to 94. And off the debut, we saw Sorry I'm Here for Someone Else by Benson Boone fall to 57, Anxiety by Sleepy Hollow and Doechii at 59, likely more on this getting directly replaced, we'll come back to it, and Miss Whitman by Bad Baby mercifully fall to 68. Outside those, Well, I Ain't Saying by Jordan Davis skidded down to 77. Fat, Juicy, and Wet by Sexy Red and Bruno Mars has just done nothing significant at 78. And 4x4 by You by Lainey Wilson slid back to 91. So, okay, what's filling in the gaps here? Honestly, not as much as you might think, even with both the expected spikes from Lady Gaga and JENNIE, where in the returns, Disease came back for the former at 71, and Extra L with Doechii to 99 from the latter. And that's somewhat true with our gains here, as Abracadabra by Lady Gaga got the expected boost from the album bomb this week to go up to 19, but the rest are pretty fragmented, with Tattoo by Tito Double P getting a slight boost off the debut to 72, Worst Way by Riley Green continuing to have the Nashville radio at 48, Ordinary by Alex Warren getting a real streaming push at 43, and Who by Jimin also getting a second win from out of nowhere at 29. But again, We are in small album bomb territory for Lady Gaga, so for the songs that are neither the best, the worst, nor in the top 40, okay, LoveDrug at 95, nearly one of the worst of the week. Killah with Gesaffelstein at 93, really not impressed by the Prince imitation there. Perfect Celebrity at 81, a song that is way less edgy than it thinks it is. Vanish Into You at 61, and Garden of Eden at 52. But okay, we still have a pretty busy week ahead with our new arrivals. Unfortunately, we gotta start with number 100, Te Quiero La Ver by Aleman and Neton Vega.
Un momentito, pero te quería ver. Solo un ratito, volverte a tener. Te necesito.
Not gonna lie, these days if I see Neton Vega on a song, my stomach just sinks. I don't think I've heard anything from this guy that I've actually liked, even if he's backing up an artist I have never heard of before. Apparently Aleman is a Mexican rapper who's actually been active for a while. His first album came out in 2015 and he's dropped a project nearly every single year since, but this is his first crossover to the Hot 100, and you know what, I'll give him this. He's got a sharp flow and he's easily the most tolerable part of this song, because Neton Vega slurring off-key through a dull hook alongside the bassy derivative reggaeton knock with a truly obnoxious squeaky synth behind him, and no, his rap verse is not redeeming any of this, where during the breakdown, Aleman takes over and he's considerably more convincing. But then you translate the lyrics, and apparently it's an attempt to win back a girl by flexing money and the ability to protect her with his gun with a little bit of brand name porn. But then Neton Vega's verse is just kinda pissy. He admits the girl rarely ever comes around despite his asking. That seems like something you would rather not say on a song like this. But really, the hook on it is just atrocious. It utterly kills it for me. Whatever Neton Vega touches apparently turns to crap. Next, number 97, Texas by Blake Shelton.
All I know, George Strait said it. Yeah, that's where all them exes go. If she ain't with me out here in Tennessee, then I don't know where she's headed. If I'm guessing, I reckon she's probably in Texas.
Alright, I'm legit shocked that this might precede a new Blake Shelton album. Last time I heard he was effectively retired from making new albums, but since he retired from The Voice as well, I guess he's got enough time to put out his first project since 2021, and we got this, and ooh, yikes, this is bad. The sour and goopy lead guitar line, the stuttering, brittle trap percussion, alongside the overproduced backing vocals that are trying for a call and response. Even if the mix feels a little warmer overall, it feels weirdly dated to go back to this sound. Then we got the lyrics, and of course Blake Shelton didn't write this, and he's basically musing where his ex could have possibly gone, listing off a bunch of states, but it's probably Texas with a bunch of George Strait references. Oh dear God, don't bring George Strait into this. But it's also another way this sort of callback feels so dated to a couple of years ago. What's worst of all is I actually remember the ex of Blake Shelton that did go back to Texas. Her name is Miranda Lambert, and she wouldn't be caught dead near this junk. So yeah, if Blake Shelton wants to come back with this, I don't know, maybe he should stay retired, cause this sucks. Number 87, Proud of Me by Fridayy and Meek Mill.
Making sure the family eat well, I give them what they need. How far we always be well, I told bro to change the ways. I'm praying he don't see jail.
It's funny, in my Patreon Discord, there was a conversation a couple of days ago about Meek Mill and why he hasn't had the staying power or respect out of the 2010s that a couple of his peers have had, especially as at one point he did have potential even going after the Drake beef. And we came up with a wealth of answers. The albums were very much of their time. He largely didn't land the prop crossover that well. He didn't have a ton of emotional range or range in his content. He and his team behaved like total assholes around knowledge with those freestyle recreations, but it left me a little bit surprised that he of all people charted here, and oh god, starting with those chipmunk vocals, that's a fine way to turn me off, but thankfully they get subsumed behind the pianos and the hazy overdubs as Fridayy and Meek Mill reminisce about the loss of their fathers and how they hoped that they would have been proud of them. I'm a little bit surprised that no drums came in, but it places the primary focus properly on both their acts, and to Meek's credit, he's pretty detailed in describing describing how much his father meant to him before he was killed. A loss that's weighed very heavily on him, and you could feel the visceral emotion as Meek vows the revenge, and then thinks about digging up his father's grave. Not sure I would have gone there. But I think the larger problem on the song might be Fridayy. There's nowhere near the same level of detail or description so much as just talking about his come up, and there's just not a lot there that feels distinct. And even if he's singing on the hook, the song just kind of feels unbalanced by Meek being such a presence. So this is not bad by any means. They're certainly trying to deliver the solemnity and the powerful emotion. I don't know, just not clicking fully. It happens. Number 85, Zombieboy by Lady Gaga. So we're only going to be talking about 2 Lady Gaga songs this week that debuted, and thankfully they're the good ones. So let's start off with what I think is slightly lesser. A tribute song to the titular Zombieboy, Rick Genest, who you might remember from the Born This Way video, who got tattoos all over his body to emulate that skeleton look, and who happened to be a friend of Lady Gaga's before he passed away in 2018. And I like that she flipped the idea into this glossy fusion of 80s rap, swaggering new wave with some glossy guitar flourishes, and this grinding solo that rips forth before the bridge goes pure sugar pop, but it'll still make her vocals sound a little bit uncanny on the hook to sell some creepiness. It's a celebration of Genest rather than outright mournful, and while I think the mix is a little bit overstuffed and overworked and kind of cluttered, hell, that's the exact same complaint I would have with Born This Way. It fits. It's not one of Gaga's best by any means, but it's pretty fun. I get why it works. It's worth hearing. Number 83, Like Jennie by Jennie.
Like Jennie, I'm obsessed like Jennie. Like Jennie. I think I really like Jennie. Haters they don't really like Jennie. Cause they can never ever be Jennie. But have you ever met?
So we also got 2 new Jennie songs this week, and let's start off with the one I found profoundly annoying. And it's actually pretty straightforward as to why. It's attempting the same sort of brute force Blackpink flex where Jennie just hammers her own name across the song and how everyone apparently wants to be like her, complete with that wiry gurgle of synth pulsating off the knocking bass, where there's no potent melody to speak of, but so many fluttering yelps alongside her. The problem is that for as much as Jennie describes how much people want to be like her, we don't get much actual description of who or what she is, and that matters for your solo debut. It lacks a certain flair when she tries to describe herself as a trendsetter and other celebrities are copying her, when so much of her own template was borrowed from American women in hip-hop. In this case, sounds like a lot like Cardi B, but minus any sense of humor or flair in her vocals. And that's the other thing. This sort of braggadociousness is not really Jennie's lane, that's more Lisa's, and the haughtiness she has is a kind of a bad look. And while we're here, as much as she says that AI can't copy this, not only is that functionally untrue given how copied Blackpink's catalog is in cross AI, not a good thing, but it's true, but I'm not hearing that unique element that would make this organic or uniquely hers. So the entire song feels like an exercise in brand management, and not good for it. Mediocre at best. Number 80, Handlebars by Jennie and Dua Lipa.
Stay strong, I always go all in, all in, all in.
Okay, a song like this is a prime example of what I meant. What does Jennie add to this that Dua Lipa couldn't have done herself? It's all in English, Jennie's got no writing credits on the song, the content is commiseration about falling too hard in love. This feels like a lumpy throwaway that Dua Lipa gave Jennie with the lumbering bass and the synths that balance out 90s sparkles with G-Funk. They're at least a little bit more interesting if the vocal chemistry wasn't painfully awkward and the vocal blending wasn't so compressed and sloppy. Yeah, of course Dua Lipa's gonna sound good here. I know I'm one of the few remaining radical optimism defenders, but Dua Lipa is an expressive singer who can sell the exasperation, and I think the main metaphor of going over the handlebars, it's a pretty good one. But this song is so clunky that I get why Dua Lipa might have thought it was expendable, because it's not exactly good either. I know Jennie's gotten more critical praise than Lisa did in terms of album staying power, but the mechanisms to brute force a crossover hit are so transparently obvious, so yeah, don't care for this either. Number 69, How Bad Do You Want Me by Lady Gaga. Yeah, I think this is my favorite song from Mayhem, and I can admit that a significant part of it is due to sounding like Lady Gaga making a modern pop Taylor Swift song. The chilly synths, the swells of overdubs, the faster patter on the hook reinforced by the guitar, dropping out of singing midway through the second verse in order to emphasize and sell the line. But it's backed up by Lady Gaga having significantly stronger pipes, even if the production is still more compressed than it really should be. Hell, even the content isn't that far removed from Swift either. A relationship quarrel where Gaga can tell she's got a rougher edge than the good girl this dude wants her to be, and there's some degree in risk in being drawn to that unpredictable bad girl that he can't quite shake her. Gaga sells intense exasperation really well at trying to convince him to match her energy, and it's really infectious. I really love how she bends the melodies across the hook. So yeah, this sneaks into becoming a hit for Gaga, even a lesser one. Yeah, I'm not gonna complain. Great song. Number 66, Sweet Dreams by J-Hope and Miguel.
Love me like that, yeah. Love me right, love me right, love me right back, yeah. Love me right, love me right, love me right back. You should never sleep alone, 'cause I'll always take you home. When there's nothing left but diamond necklace on you, girl.
I was legit surprised by this collab. The first from J-Hope since he finished his military service, and a collab with Miguel, who hasn't released much of anything for years now in terms of full-length albums. War and Leisure came out in 2017, that's all I'm saying. And this, I mean, it's fine, but man, I expected a little bit better. And a lot of that comes down to Miguel and his vocal production. A lot of his albums are these lush and humid, and his voice sounds so buttery and rich in the mix, and this just does not do that. He jumps into his falsetto, which feels a lot less playful and more compressed than it should be, alongside the gentle tapping groove with the acoustic guitar and the gauzy synths with the bass flutters. And yet, it's not surprising he doesn't sound great, because it does match J-Hope's production. It's taking Miguel into K-pop style production, and it just feels off to me. And it's kind of a shame because the rest of the song is fine. The interplay is passable, the groove is here to sell a pretty soft focused love song. I've certainly heard a lot worse from K-pop as of recently, but as a Miguel fan, yeah, should be better. All I'm gonna say. And finally, number 13, Anxiety by Doechii. And now we have part 2 of the conversation from last episode, because as predicted, Doechii's re-recording of Anxiety went viral, hit the charts, and I'll be honest, even with the re-recording, I'm not much of a fan of this. Part of that is the sample and the production that borrows so much more from Doechii's Somebody That I Used to Know. That song isn't just great, it's idiosyncratic, and it's so distinctive that if you're just gonna layer your own vocals on top, it's gonna be hard for me not to make the comparison to the 2010s classic that it is. And more than that, I just really don't care for Doechii's vocal line here. The re-recording shows how she's become a better singer, but she's trying to frame Anxiety as a taunt that she can't escape with that vocal sing-song she's doing. Might works a little bit too well in selling that. And the verses feel weirdly disconnected. The first is trying to showcase how her newfound come-up is exploitative of her, with the second casting a wider view of the rightward shift in her home state of Florida that'll crack down on blackness, queerness, and her brand of femininity. And yeah, all of that would cause anxiety, but it feels a half step from pulling it all together to pull the song together to fully work. And yeah, that also makes sense. If you're feeling anxious about the state of the modern world right now and you can't quite piece it all together, I get it. That's probably a major factor to why the song is suddenly as big as it is, but I kind of don't want to sit in that emotion, and this song kind of does. I don't think this is bad, I'll say it, but again, Alligator Bites Never Heal had a lot of better songs that show how much Doechii has grown since this, and more of them deserve that push. All I'm saying there. And yet, that's our week. Whew, God, this was rough. Thank God Lady Gaga can walk away with How Bad Do You Want Me in the top spot, and Zombieboy as the honorable mention. Worst of the week, though, yeah, Te Crois le Ver by Aleman and Neton Vega, yikes. With dishonorable mention, I'm saying Blake Shelton for Texas as a total dud. Dude, I know you can make better music than this even if you're not writing it. You can say no to bad songs and bad ideas. Unfortunately, next week is likely going to get a lot worse with that Playboy Cardi album bomb. Joy. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.